Hello. This is a video I'm coming with as an inspiration for musical artists, artists of any kind, people interested in expressing themselves. That's the purpose of this channel, to develop creativity and expression. But then also I'm showing my journey to do that as an artist, as a musical artist. But it can equally apply to I think a lot of the what I'm trying to convey can apply to a lot of different mediums, respects, and disciplines and undertakings. And it's for inspiration, insight, and also sharing music, because I'm having the opportunity to share musical content, whether that's with half a dozen, or 100 people. It's still rock and roll if it's original and people like it. But I kind of wanted to elaborate on and share a random conversation that I had last night as I made one of my final deliveries for the current point phase in my life as a 1099 delivery person in my area. So it was kind of like I think they call it like a water tower, or it was a significant moment that I shared in the elevator with this man. And I usually just say random stuff off the cuff. The best way to interact with anyone is just to say whatsoever comes into your mind, and just riff off of that, and that's how you can broach or open someone into an interaction based on something that is existing between you in reality, in real time. And then you can actually make a friend just by saying something that came into your mind. Because when we're around people, we have all kinds of different stuff coming into our mind, but we keep it to ourselves, and then we start having that experience we should be having with them. We start having it with ourselves in a very unflattering way, and we get like stuck in our head with it. But so this man came onto the elevator with some cool boots, and I was like, man, if I like those boots. If they were my size, I'd be trying to rob you right now. And he laughed about it. But then I was thinking about it later. I should have been like, if they were my size, I should try to rob you for them, and then you'd probably kick my back in with them, and then I'd get the camera footage, tell the police, and then sue you, and then get the boots back, and then you'd probably tell all your comrades and your bandits that I had been a snitch, and then you guys come behind me, and then get the boots back. But now they have a better story. So just like random stuff like that. But he appreciated that, and then we got to talking about how nasty and mean, because he had these boots that almost looked like from the Civil War period, and we got to talking about like how I had attended a high school that was a significant location in the Civil War, and it was located very close to a railroad in a significant place in the South. And we got to talking about just how nasty and mean and unnecessary war is, and how like I was telling him, like, him and we're like regular men, and we enjoy women, and we probably can't expect to go to hell. But even in hell, we would still be a guest there, and but nobody's a guest in war, and that's just the type of stuff we're talking about. But then we got to talking about music, and I was telling him a little bit about like what I do, like with this channel, like with riffing and improvising and doing stuff. And if you've been able to enjoy some of my all my content, really, but the most recent videos I'm leaving, they actually do not derive from principles of harmony as are generally and broadly understood. And so it would appear in those videos as though I have more of a musical background with harmony than I may actually have. And I do have some background with harmony. Like, this is my alma mater, Berkeley College of Music, but I had went to the online program, and I made it as far as Music 201, which is like the second level of musical harmony and theory as a student in college. But I think I got like a C in both those classes. So I do understand what is going on with when people are using principles of harmony, but I was never like fluent in it and coordinated with it. Where like if someone were to be like, what is a C major, what is a C major 7? I could sit down on a piano and I could pluck it out or figure it out, but it probably take me like 5 or 10 minutes. And in music, you obviously don't have, you're talking about like you have to do something instantly to make it fluent. But so I say as much to say is that I learned enough about it to throw the book away. And I actually have it's kind of interesting because I had located one of the most the most thick, voluminous, and thoroughgoing books about musical harmony, a used book. And the book begins by saying that the author commends a person for picking up the book. However, they're liable to throw that book in the nearest out the window of a car or into a campfire at one point in studying it. And that was a way deeper remark that the author of that book made than it might seem, because I was like, dang, like this is a beautiful cold book. Why would you say something like that? It was like what? And then also it's kind of weird to like make like a joke or a reference like that in like a technical book that could be used in a college from an author. But I almost feel like when you understand that book, you would really throw it away, and it doesn't even take you to the end of the book to understand it if you're coming like I'm coming. So the other thing I wanted to say is that when I was at Berkeley College of Music, I learned a lot of things about like artistry. But then also I was saying like these I was saying some different like inspirational comments, like kind of like what I do in these videos and in a lot of my life, that are kind of like rambling on and on, run-on sentences, but I have a little bit of insight in there because I've read a lot of different stuff and thought about a lot of different stuff. And there was one guy in there who was like, I think he had been from like a military and a computer background, but he was just a really nice guy that was really intelligent, and he appreciated a lot of my comments. But when he was responding to one, he did this little thing where it's like if I were to say this is an off-brand bottle of soda. When you say off and brand like that in writing, you put a little dash between it. I think it's called like a M dash, or it can be a hyphen or M dash. But it's acknowledging that you just put two nouns together, as though you put two words together as though they were one word. And when you put that dash together, that's how you express that clearly in punctuation. Just by watching my another student do that, it gave me an awareness of what's going on when you read something as far as the punctuation that's going on and what that punctuation is actually saying. Because for a long time growing up, I saw a lot of different, I could read a lot of different things, and I had a grasp for understanding things that I'm reading, but I never completely grasped what was going on with the punctuation. It just looked like random punctuation. But so by me witnessing him do that, it made me start to be more and more better of a reader and writer, just by being aware of punctuation. So I wanted to highlight that as one of the things that I picked up in school. But another thing I picked up there is that I read a book by we were exposed to the writings of a brilliant musician and a Grammy Award winning musician named, I think, Victor Wooten. And he no less and coincidentally is a bassist. And some of the things that I'm doing in these videos are going over bass notes, like riffing on bass. and in his book, it's kind of like he is in that book he's presenting ideas almost similar to the Bhagavad Gita, where it's in the Gita, as I understand, I think a female pupil or disciple is asking questions of a master, and in essence they are the same person, because we are all always teacher and student ourselves, and we are one another, and we are all people. But it's like a question back and forth between a student, a somewhat naive or unlearned person and a student, and then a more seasoned and masterful person as a teacher, to the point of being mystical, both in the Gita but also in this book that Victor Wooten wrote. And so he's teaching his understanding of music in magical terms and magical dimensions. And for me to come across it as a book, at first that would seem like a little bit pretentious, or like he's kind of reaching with that one. But the things that he said in that book are they are in fact mystical, I think, if you appreciate it in a certain sense. One example of that is that, and this is where I'm leaning into it and adding to the type of things he's talking about in that book. But in that book, he said a couple of things. He said, like, one thing is that he was telling he was telling the person, like, the mystical teacher has appeared in someone's life, and he's giving them insights like, don't lock your car. And the person's like, well, why would I not lock my car? And he's saying, just by you locking it, you're putting out a vibe into your vicinity, into your life, and into your reality of being available to be robbed. So just if you left it unlocked, a lot of people will walk past it and just as soon assume that it's locked. And if someone is bold enough or inclined enough to break into your car, most cars are locked, so they probably accounted for that and would do so in spite of that. So you're a little bit better off by not locking it and not putting that vibe out. So that's the type of thing he talked about in there. But another thing he said, equally and more so profound, is that he enunciates in that book that a lot of times when we're learning like music or we're learning an instrument, sometimes our very preceptors who are supposed to encourage and enlighten us can actually browbeat us to a degree and intimidate us with their own proficiency, learning, skill, knowledge, fluency in technical terms and so forth, that actually limit us as their students, and they may not be aware, limit them themselves as teachers for both promulgating that and approaching things that way, in my estimation. But in that spirit, he enunciates to a student that in music there are no wrong notes. There are only unintentional notes. That might be the single deepest insight into music that is available in any written form, in my opinion, because when you if you consider sound, it's way deeper than it might seem than it might seem. Like, I have one video way back in the catalog where I'm talking about this. I don't know the title of that video, but I'm gonna include it in the description. But so like an instrument has tensions, and these tensions they exist before you go to enunciate a note, as you enunciate that note, and then after you enunciate that note to ripple off forevermore. So in that sense, the tensions of that instrument are somewhat immortal and eternal, because they have existed, they exist, and they shall exist. So at all points of that's magical, and then in addition to that, it transcends our understanding of linear time. Where in a certain sense our reality, our essence, and ourselves exist in that same way. We're on a level, we had been here, we are here, and we will continue to be here. That is something that a weightlifting trainer, I had a trainer who he had been maimed he had been ran off the road as a young person while joining the highway. And so for any of my persons, that's something I can offer as a 1099 driver, that in driving in a lot of things in life, you want to be accommodating, and you are smoother by yielding in most senses to other traffic and to pedestrians. However, when you are joining a highway, that's one point where you can be assertive if you have to be. Because there are rare instances where someone can be as poor of a driver or as nasty a driver to actually run someone off the road. So this man had been ran off the road as a young person and maimed, and then he barely survived that, and he was nearly crippled and disabled from that, but he was able to convalesce and heal from that to the point of becoming a successful and state class bodybuilder in the area where I'm from, which is why I had approached him for learning. But I was joining him in his something of a mansion in near the inner city where I live, where he was just very successful, and there can be like little pockets of affluence within the city that are kind of classy and low key at the same time. But we were in this beautiful home of his. And he was explaining to me how he had healed from that accident, and then he also became a musician in that time. So he took me into this basement, and then he broke out an electric guitar, and he started playing this amazing, beautiful, crazy music on his guitar, and then for like 10 and 15 minutes, like almost as long as some of these songs I'm doing are. And then it almost felt like if someone were to take you off to the side and take advantage of you, but he was doing so in a good way and in a beautiful way and in an inspirational way with the instrument. And then when he got done, he was telling me that he hadn't and hasn't been taught anything of music, and that he had figured all that out by listening to rock and roll that he likes, picking up an electric guitar, and then just figuring stuff out. And then he told me that the way that he was able to play music, but also that the real players like are great players from like the Delta in the South, like during racism and segregation. What they had did in his view is that they had been introduced to or discovered a lick, like just a very brief musical pass or phrase, and then that's their inroad and their initiation and their point of becoming familiar with the instrument, and then just building off of that, it just grows and grows, and it doesn't stop as long as you don't stop. And that's how they get good, and that's how he got good, and that's how I have developed this song. This song that I've been going over. I've been playing the same song since the early fall last year, when I could not play much of anything last fall, like around like July, August. But my music teacher was wanting me to practice daily, he wanted me to pick up the instrument daily, and I was in an extended living situation with family where I didn't have the space to do that or the inspiration by the nature of the environment, because our environment affects us a lot as human beings, and especially when we're being creative or being artists. So I actually end up going to a beautiful lake in the area where I live, and playing the instrument out there, and I didn't have hardly any repertoire back then, but I was still so I didn't have anything to play, but I needed something to play to not look bogus holding a guitar in a public space. So I started making up stuff as I was sitting there, and then it was just kind of a really beautiful, enjoyable experience that was completely free. And then I kept doing that, and then I would actually bring my guitar to work, and in the line of work where I'm at, we have like a long break during the middle of the day. And I would go off to a grassy area and imitate like there's a great book on classical guitar, where it's one of the main books students have used over decades. And in there, the masterful teacher, there's a picture of him playing like by a water area around rocks, and he's playing outside like with the instrument. So I was kind of emulating that off in the grass. And then one of I was working for a family-owned company, and the spouse, who was a dual owner of the company, encouraged me to bring my guitar playing back over closer to the entrance to the building and picnic area, where I could be heard by other co-workers. And so I did that, and then again my repertoire and skills were very rudimentary, but they had become a little bit stronger because I was at that lake. And then so playing publicly like that, it actually informed the creativity and the skill, and I kept doing that over the breaks, and I got much stronger over the fall. But then I left that position, and I started doing content creation as a way to understand myself and grow as a person. And I took a couple months off and did 1099, but now I'm back in that line of work. But I've gotten stronger in content and in music. And then recently I've developed improvisation that I demonstrate in these videos, that is again not based on musical harmony or understanding on any level, except for that lick. So when I start that song, I play like a little lick. That part that's a lick in what's called an etude. Like I think something that you practice, and it's more so for developing skill than actually being performed. And my teacher had gave me that, and then I kept running with that and developing that into what's now about 30 minutes. And when I was doing that, I told the teacher saw me doing that, and he said it's all good because that etude is so ancient and timeless that I think it might be in what's called the common knowledge. When something's old enough, like say like 100 years old, like whether it's something that's been written in a book or something that has been written musically. I don't know how it goes with the estates that have the titles and rights to that, but on a certain level, it's open to anyone and it can be incorporated in anything without paying like royalties or copyright infringement things. But it's still good to honor what you're learning from. So I wanted to honor that fact that I'm doing that in this video. But the rest of the music is not. It's just basically what sounds and feels good to my ears and hands and the guitar, and then and so, but it's based on that principle of, and where I wanted to go with this video is that is based on that principle of what that Victor Wooten was talking about, in that there's no such thing as a wrong note, just an unintentional note, and people can hear whether you meant to enunciate something or you didn't. So what I was wanting to go with is that when I had that conversation with this man who these boots of his I liked, I was kind of going a little bit into in a 2-minute interaction, I was going a little bit into my understanding of harmony, just to show you how pretentious and verbose I can be in all places and all times in my life. And it's good to be exactly who you are, to enjoy life and experience people, but also be aware of who you are, because you have blind spots, detriments, and indulgences and excesses that can be damaging to yourself and other people. So also be mindful of that, but also be exactly who you are. And I was telling him a little bit about my understanding about music, and so what I was telling him is that when you study music, like when you study like harmony, like I did, it's almost similar to like what that student taught me about, like where you put that M dash in there and you use the punctuation, where when you do things in a something that is preconceived yet organized and reasoned on some level, you have a congruence and a force of thought and expression that is singular, somewhat linear, and it can be forceful, almost like speaking proper English. Where when you speak, I had a family friend who when I was very young, I had grown up in between the northern United States, the southwestern United States, back to the northern United States, and then to the southern United States, or mid south, and then back to the north. And then within all of that, I had experienced multiple cultures, multiple dialects, and beautiful people, and so I actually had become, and I had also imitated all of these people to the point of losing some of my natural personality and style of communication. So I became somewhat muddled and confusing because I both didn't understand myself, and then other people didn't understand me, not understanding myself. So I just sounded kind of a little bit strange in putting on these different airs and affects in speech, which it might have started intentional, but then at a certain point it was unintentional, and it was just kind of very, very kind of strange. But there was a family friend who I was in proximity to, and he had a very striking appearance in terms of his aesthetic features. He was from the same region of Africa that I am, which is the southern region, and there's that region, South Africa has drawn different people from around the world in terms of industry, but also going back to the times of slavery that they also had in Southern Africa around mining. And they had back in the I don't know the exact history, but going back a couple to several hundreds of years ago, they had drawn people from Southeast Asia. So if you meet a person from South Africa, for one thing, Africa is very diverse in terms of people. Prior to and before human beings had left Africa, and then also as human beings came back to Africa in colonialism, Africa was already very diverse. Also in skin tone, there had also been people who were very of a beautiful dark complexion and a beautiful light complexion at all grades of that scale prior to colonialism. And so the people of South Africa, they can be very diverse in appearance, both both in terms of African ancestry, but also the Asian ancestry that is in South Africa. So this family friend of mine, he has that striking appearance, and it somewhat, I think, has to do with that Southern Africa. But he was very comfortable in. He was several years older than me, and he was very comfortable in embracing exactly who he is. And speaking and behaving that way and interacting with any and everyone exactly as he was, being so he was African and could speak with a dialect, a European language that is prominent in the Southern Africa region. So he was multilingual, but then also his parents were they were very ambitious and hardworking, and his stepfather had been a officer in Africa, and then a medical person in America, and his mother was also a medical person in America. So they had a degree of affluence and almost like middle class standard of living. So he had grown up within the suburban high schools in the area where I'm from. But the suburban high schools, they also drew people from all different regions of the city. So in the suburban high school, you can be going to high school with people from any background, and so he was very comfortable with people of any background, and so he also had he almost spoke like a suburban person would speak, but but he would do so whether he was at a hole in the wall nightclub, a upscale lounge, a job setting. He would always talk exactly the same way, and he was described once as a preppy playboy. And I always thought that was really cool, but I was inspired by, he's the one who taught me to enunciate myself, and it helped me overcome my culture shock in these different regions, and what was turning into a little bit of delusion from not understanding myself or my experiences. And then I got stronger as a person, personally and verbally, by being exposed to him. And but that has a little bit of bearing on this subject, because when you speak respectful of yourself in an audience, and then you are measuring your words, and you're using vocabulary and syntax that can be understood by people from different different social class or backgrounds, personally and socially, you become more versatile, and you can get in and out of situations smoother, whether that be a job setting or a being pulled over by a police officer because your headlights were out. It's just very it's a very healthy way to understand ourselves. But then we can also be limited if we focus on being proper in and of itself, because when you're being proper, you're coming from there's a certain limitation with anything that's organized on any level. What this has to do with harmony is that when you're learning music or harmony, and you're coming from a preconceived background, there's a certain strength in congruence of thought in using that, but it's also limiting. So when you like say you have a girl with the music, when I was talking about the magical dimensions of music, what's actually happening in harmony and in music is that if you were to listen to like some wind chimes, like say you strike some wind chimes, the sounds that they're making are rippling and cascading like a waterfall off of each other and off into eternity. And the relationships as these sounds are intermingling are very sophisticated and are actually living. When you hear beautiful music and it starts to be harmony, and it starts to be it's music. I once had a guitar teacher that I spent some time with, and I was playing very rudimentary music at that point that I had been studying in a book for about 3 months. But he appreciated that I could actually play something at our first lesson. He said, "You're making music now. Like this is music." And it was very humble, but it was actually real harmony that was being achieved, howsoever humble and modest. And so when you're hearing music and it starts to harmonize, these are the energies rippling and intermingling, and I would be so bold as to say they are in fact living, because all the things both all the things that exist both inside our present and beyond what we understand as our present reality are in fact living, if you can appreciate it on an ultimate and profound level, including tensions, including things that are immaterial, such as these sounds and these harmonies. And when they are intermingling, they are now they are living, and they are speaking to you and themselves. So that's what I believe. I think that's what's going on in music. And when you're doing it in a linear, preconceived, organized fashion, like what we understand of as a Western tonal music, there's a certain force that comes with that. That's proper. That's speaking proper. But there's a limitation to that, in that they call a musical scale, which is a set pattern of notes that's about 7 notes long. There's some of them are called major, some of them are called minor, and then there's a couple variations of major, and then more so in the minor. But there can be more in sophisticated scales, and some very beautiful harmony can be derived from these scales. But these scales are also referred to as modes. And when you're speaking in a particular mode, whether proper or something like that, you are eloquent for that mode, but you're also somewhat limited by that mode. And it's like speaking proper, but it's also like, so what I was telling that person is like, if you can imagine someone speaking proper, there's something very forceful and respectful about that. But then if you can imagine like a slick talker or a smooth talker, they're speaking anything off the cuff that comes into their mind, and they're both speaking proper and improper at the same time about proper and improper subjects that is entertaining, enjoyable, and enlightening. And as proper as you may be, and as improper as they may be, they are probably less likely to linger around a vicinity, because they are very compelling, magnetic, and polarizing. So they can be polarized and expelled right out of a vicinity. But they are also liable to be joined by your sweetheart as they walk out of the vicinity in all of their properness and improperness. just to be a little bit of a smart aleck. But what I was telling him is that, like, say you have if you were to appreciate the musical instrument and harmony as a partner in your life, the way you initiate that relationship is the way you will sustain and complete that relationship. Likely, your first impression being your most lasting impression, and the tone of the interactions between you. And it's the same with harmony, so that when you begin to play a song or make harmony, if you're doing so in a preconceived, linear, organized way, you may have a certain effect, but you are also bound by that effect. And that's why in all people's understanding of harmony and adhering to a certain mode in harmony, that mode is limited, and it peters out very quickly. So a lot of our songs are only about 3 and 4 minutes, because they're limited by these modes that are being employed, and they lose their interest soon, because they are bound by that linear form that linear motion that they're employing. But if you were to start, so it's like a person, if I were to have a girlfriend, and I approach her like a very proper person, and we're going to have a proper interaction, and then we have a little bit of a strong interaction, but in not too long I bring another lady or woman around, I'll probably get slapped in my face, and she may walk out of my life right then and there. But if I had approached her at the beginning, being both proper and improper, and exactly who I am, and I say that, I like you, and I also like other people, and I don't think there has to be any incongruence in that. She may or may not appreciate that. She may or may not stay around me. But if she does, either she stays with me or she walks away, she'll still yet respect me, and potentially respect another person that I bring around us, and we can have a good time, the three of us, being exactly who we are, proper and improper. So it's similar with harmony, where if you approach your very same note and could care less about harmony, you can strike any note that you choose, and it's all good, and it's all music, and it's all real, and it sounds nice, I think. So you can play on and on for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, and you're playing inspiration that comes to you, and you're and it's starting to sound nice, because it's exactly who you are, and it's exactly who the living energies in the notes are. And so that's some of the my understanding of the improvisation that I'm employing in these videos, that is not based on standards of musical harmony, yet is harmonious. And then sometimes also when I'm playing like the strings, like, sometimes like when an apple is getting ready to fall off a tree, it's ready to fall off a tree, you can kind of see it. And it's the same thing with opportunities, where sometimes when I'm playing like the string, like a certain string, it starts to stand out like it wants to be plucked, or a certain fret. And I also go with that. So that's part of it too. So all I meant to say is that I somewhat can't be credited for what I'm writing, but if I were to credit anyone, it would be this man who was maimed, ran off the road, this man, Victor Wooten, this peer of mine in college who respected what I had to say and was yet enlightened and erudite himself. The guitar itself, my physical, the anatomy of my hands that I was blessed by my parents, and perhaps whatever has landed us in this reality and protects us in this reality and inspires us in this reality and loves us in this reality. And then that beautiful book in harmony that could explain almost anything in harmony, yet invited me to throw it away. And then also my brother's a artist, and he normally doesn't say too much of anything. But he hears a lot. And to give you an example of the caliber of artist he is, I'm going to show something that he did for me. My favorite character from comics is the Predator, because I think that we as human beings, the original human beings, which all of us are the original human beings, going back, because what else could we be? I think we had an appearance similar to Predator, because there's another person I should have maybe referenced in this video is a YouTuber named King Noble. He has some material that can be polarizing in terms of understanding dynamics living in the United States. So I would caution anyone about landing on his page. But he has some very beautiful and insightful messages on there that can if you can take his message in with a little bit of like the same way you would take in whiskey, whatever your background, I think you could learn a lot from him. But one thing that he said is that the hair of a human being, if you allow it to grow in nature as it would have before we had barbers or could afford barbers, it will become dreadlocks naturally. It'll form into dreadlocks. So by that I reason that our original appearance would be something like the character Predator in the animated series, and it's something that I emulate with my own what are becoming similar to dreadlocks. And I think that it conveys a very powerful aesthetic to ourselves and other people, and ourselves seeing other people seeing us, and it's a form of a virulence and potency and self-expression and embracing who we are. And a certain strength can come from that. So I just wanted to say that. But I enjoy Predator because he's a hunter of hunters, and he people that kill people, he kills them for sport in the series. So he's very versatile and interesting in that way. And he's also, you don't see him around too much of other people, or if he is, they look exactly like him. So I identify with the character Predator. But my brother, he normally doesn't say anything. And then, but I'd asked him last summer to create a portrait of Predator for me, and I played that video called Bass Salute to him, and that's the first time that he was ever moved by something that I did artistically, and he was compelled, that he was very keen that I hadn't used musical harmony. So, and then he was referencing, I think, one of the members of the Beatles, and at one point the person had been asked by an interviewer. I'm not sure if it was Paul McCartney who that was, but the person was saying that was interested that he still wasn't using much of employment of musical terminology. And I think the Beatles had been similar that way, where they're much more musical than musicians, and they were better musicians for that. And so there was a certain part in there where the person said, or Paul McCartney the Beatle member was recognizing that he didn't use or even understand a lot of technical musical terms.